Okay, Rich. So the meeting is officially recording. So thanks for jumping on and thanks for doing this. So shall we begin by, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Richard, and I've known George for it's got to be the best part of 10 years, I think. And yeah, I've
What do
had
you
a
do? Like maybe speak about your background so people can understand like your sort of background. Like you,
sure. So I met George through his wife Tanya, who worked for me as a personal assistant, and developed a personal relationship with her as well as business. And through that, I've got to meet George. I guess you'd say I'm fairly successful in terms of a businessman. I've got a property portfolio, several companies. Yeah, I've done fairly well for myself, but recently I've gone through a very testing time with a very bitter divorce, and been accused of some very bad things, and been in a very dark place. But I've just had some very good news. My divorce settlement has come through, and it's been very um, unexpected. And I've sort of taken on a new lease of life, and sort of here I am.
thanks for that, Rich. Thank you for sharing all of that. And there's a lot of people that are going to resonate with that because there's a lot of men that struggle with mental health that go through divorces and and are very successful too. And you've just sort of almost confirmed or affirmed that sometimes success doesn't mean that it fixes all problems.
Do you know what? That's very true. And I drive a nice car. It's quite flashy, and people might look at me and think, "God, look at that guy! Isn't he lucky?" And maybe aspire to be like me. But what they didn't realise is that when I jumped out of the car and I went home, and at times when I was drinking myself to oblivion, and was on the verge of literally giving up on life. So it's when people look at things, you know, it's that thing. Don't judge a book by its cover. People might have looked at me and thought, "Wow, look at him," but I was a broken man, and close to throwing it all away.
Thanks for being so honest about everything as well, because it's definitely your story. I find it inspiring, and I'm sure if I find it inspiring, there's multiple people around the world that will probably feel the same. Um, so let me ask you a question. So obviously, before we worked together, how was you? How where was your mindset at before you sort of actually formally did like some sessions and worked together?
I don't think there's a lot more I can say. Without going into too much detail, I was ready to throw in the towel. Um, I I'm blessed to have an amazing network of friends and family and a supportive girlfriend. But despite all of that, I was hanging on to life by a thread at times. Um, I was at the lowest point I have been in my life, without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow.
And forgive me if I get a bit emotional
No,
because
no, no, no. I appreciate the honesty, and it is an emotional time. You went through a lot of things, Rich, that most people mentally wouldn't wouldn't really be able to break through, and
yeah,
it tested you. You were tested. You were,
I
there was
was
a lot
tested big
of,
time, mate.
yeah, and but you pulled through. So
Yep.
when you were tested, you passed the test in a sense of you learned how strong you actually are as a character, as in your mindset, resilience. You showed that.
I've learned so much about myself in the last couple of years. I've grown as a person. Um, when I look back on it, yeah, I've learned a hell of a lot about myself.
And working together, how did you feel that I helped you working together?
I think you just you. I mean, like I said, I've known you for some time, um, and obviously you've got into what you do professionally now, whereas before you were like a friend, or even my Tanya's husband. But I was always very surprised that somebody your age could have such wisdom. It's I've never really come across that, and I don't judge. But even so, it did very much surprise me. And there was things that you'd said to me previously that really resonated with me and helped me to focus my head. And I think that, thinking back to our most recent session, which was just before my court date, you just pulled me out of this cycle and this hell, that I was in. And whilst you're not a miracle worker and you can't click your fingers and say abracadabra, you kind of rolled out the red carpet for me, and made it a lot easier to get where I needed to be. And you backed it up with reason. And no matter what I questioned, no matter what questions I had, you were able to give me an answer, which convinced me to go down a different path and lift myself out of that hole and on a different pathway. And you know, well, the results, right? And I'm sure you're going to come on to that and ask me some questions about that. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I.
No, no, that's that. You explain things really well. You explain things really well, and I'm sure it's very clear for not just myself, but for everyone that's going to obviously view this. One of the biggest things I remembered was you was in a state of severe anxiety. If I'm going to be honest, I think that's
Hopelessness.
hopeless because your situation, and I'm not going to get into the specifics because that's your private life, and I totally 100% wholeheartedly respect you. Of course, I'm not going to say too much, but what I would say is this: you know, you was in a situation where there was a future event that was going to literally either make or break you.
Yes,
To be blunt, that was going to take away all your hard work. That was going to
yes, yeah,
take you right to back to square one, and decades of work just gone down the drain. And you know that,
yes,
and
yes,
you were so anxious and overwhelmed and stressed, and
yes.
your mind just, your body was there, but your mind wasn't.
Yeah, I'd left the room mentally. That's
Yeah,
that's that's
yeah.
a really good way of describing it. I was here physically, but mentally I was away with the fairies.
Yeah, you really was. That's a good way to put it too, metaphorically speaking. But and I remember after working with you, I remember I kind of saw from say the beginning of us working together, kind of to the end, I saw a different perspective. I saw a more calm Richard. I saw a more focused Richard. I saw a Richard that accepts that he can't always have control over a future event, and someone
Yeah,
actually who he was actually more peaceful by the end of our session than before. Would you agree?
I was. Look, like you say, you don't want to go into too much detail, but it involved a court case, and I remember I had to leave the court, and I was waiting for the judgment, and I was like, right, okay, this is it. Um, and honestly, of course, I thought about my girlfriend before you. Um,
Oh
you might be
man.
sad. You might be sad to know. I thought about my girlfriend. I thought about family. I thought about my children, and then I did think about you. And I thought about all the things that you'd said to me, um, all the bits of advice, um, and I didn't think it wasn't all of them, but I cherry picked the ones that were important to me. Yeah, because I think that it's a very personal
It
thing,
is. It
and
is.
you can't have a generic approach, and you do your best to tailor your program to your individual client. But I cherry picked the things that meant to me, and I was like, you know what will be will be. and I'm gonna face this, and I'm going to accept it, and all of the things you taught me, and I went in with my back straight, ready for whatever was going to be thrown at me. And I think that's the key difference. I think that's yeah, that was the difference.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that as well, Richard. I really appreciate you being very vulnerable and honest about your situation because, like I said, there will be people that may obviously not in the exact same position as you. Every story is unique, but that will be going through some severe hardship that will listen to you, and you might be the straw that break the camel's back in a sense that you might be their turning point to say enough's
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
Today's the day I make a difference, and today's the day I end to
yeah.
my anxiety. So today's the day I learn how to conquer life's most difficult challenges. Because I think that that's one of the biggest things that you was going through. Like, you was faced with a very difficult life challenge, and that challenge, you was able to you was prepared to conquer that challenge, and that takes a lot of understanding of the mind and how the mind works, and how to handle your emotions in a tough situation, how to conquer the feelings, when how to stay steady and focused on the goal at hand.
So if I may, George, something that you did teach me, and obviously I don't want to give too much away, but you taught me about what I can control and what I can't control,
Yes.
and I knew that when I was walking back into that courtroom to face my um, destiny, I had no control over that, and that's what gave me so much strength and the ability. My girlfriend sent me a picture of herself, looking cute, and I was like, you know what, uh, you know, whatever happens, I'm still gonna have my girlfriend. I've got my health, I've got my friends, I've got my family, and it just gave me the strength and the ability to move forward no matter how difficult it was. And we what is it that we're taught as kids? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a nonsense. It does hurt. However, what you're saying is that it doesn't have to hurt. So with work, and help from people like yourself, you can try and manage that and put things into perspective, which can be very, very difficult when you're in a deep dark hole that
Yeah.
I was in. And you just shone a light on me, George. Or maybe it wasn't. No, in fact, no, it wasn't you that shone the light on me. I turned the light on through your guidance. You helped me to find the switch. Um, and it seems very simple, but it's very, very difficult if you don't know what you're doing. And I didn't know what I was doing, and you guided me to that light switch, and for that I'll be forever grateful.
No, thank you very, very much, Richard, for that. I really, again, I'm because I know your situation more than other people that are going to view this. I resonate with you wholeheartedly and sincerely because I feel like I've been a part of your story to a degree, like a spectator, but a spectator that feels the
Yeah.
situation to a degree, and I
Well, just so everyone knows, I mean, you were a bit of a spectator because we used to talk, because obviously your wife was my assistant and used to help me, and she would obviously feed bits and bobs back to you. But it was when we started the program that you really became
yeah.
much more of an influence in my life, and things started to sort of change when you became professionally involved, shall we say.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think that that's the difference between informal friendship advice to let's get to
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think the difficulty is that your friends and your family will give you advice. Of course they do, because they love you. But when you've got somebody impartial that is not emotionally connected to you, um, it's a different dynamic.
It
It's
is.
a
You could be
totally
more honest
different
as well.
dynamic.
You could be more honest as well, can't you? You could be more
You
free.
can,
Yeah, because
you
it's a safe
can.
space. It's a safe space. In the same way that
Yeah.
I will never spill any information about your personal life privately that you wouldn't want. It's a
Yes.
very, it applies to everyone. It's a safe space, and that's I think an important message that always know that when you have someone that you can talk to professionally, it's a safe space. That's their job.
Yeah.
Whereas if you talk to a friend and it's informal, isn't it's not guaranteed to be always a safe space. And
Correct.
I think that's quite an
Yeah.
important thing to kind of understand. So Richard, I mean, this brings me on to sort of, I suppose, my last major question. I mean, there are going, like I said to you, there are going to be people that are going to be watching this that, by the way, are going to feel extremely inspired by your story. I know I am. And I want to ask you, what advice would you give to somebody who's watching this now, who's lost in life, anxious, depressed, got life challenges smashing them in their face day in, day out, and they're thinking, can I do this on my own? Should I get support? Maybe work with George, maybe not. What advice would you give to that person?
Well, I know what you're going to want me to say. You're going to want me to say, give George a call.
I want
But
you to be honest. I want you to be honest.
no, I think that we all have different opportunities around us. We have people that can help us. We have friends and family that try to help us, but actually sometimes give us the wrong advice, not out of malevolence, but just because they care for you and they're emotionally involved with you. So they're trying to do their best, but they don't always do their best. And so I've done quite a lot of therapy, which is helpful, because you get to talk to somebody about your problems. But what therapy doesn't give you that somebody like George can give you, um, is advice. So, so what George does or has done for me, he's given me exercises. He's given me um, real case scenarios. He's backed it up with evidence, if you like. So um, look, you need to think very carefully about what you want to do and what's right for you. But it I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. But then I've come out the other side, and I've got the flag, and I can say how amazingly well things have worked out. But it's like anything. You're only going to get out of it what you put into it.
Good
Um,
point.
but what George can do is kind of tease that out of you and show you different ideas, and it's a process, and it's not he's not a magician. He's not going to wave a magic wand. You need to engage with him. You need to follow his advice. um, or if something that George might be saying to you isn't quite going to work, tell him, and he'll temper it to what's needed. But look, I mean, like I said, I've known George for the best part of 10 years. I've known him on a personal level, um, and I now know him, and I've worked with him on a professional level. And yeah, I mean, I'm a very happy man right now. I mean,
Your energy shines through. Your energy is contagious.
you're not the
Good.
first one to say it, George. I mean, we're, and by the way, just so that whoever's listening to this is aware, my court case was last Friday, the 28th. Today's the 6th of March. Um, so, we're talking days. Um, and I'm sure if you speak to me again in a month's time, I'll be miserable and back to normal. But like I said to George earlier, I've learned so much about myself over the last couple of years, and I feel that I've been given a new lease of life, a new opportunity, and I ain't going to waste it. So, you know what? Do what you want to do. It's your life, But you know what? Just have a chat with George. Have a chat with him. I don't know how you work your program, George. I don't know how if you. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
give
yeah.
it a go. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? That's my take on it. Um,
Appreciate
and
that,
as I said
Richard.
to George, if you're umming and ahhing, I don't mind having a chat with people. I because for me, this is look, George is a businessman and he needs to put food on the table. But this is an opportunity for people to win, to better their lives, and I'm only too happy to promote that, spread a bit of love, and make the world a better place. And in my opinion, that's what George is up to. So
Thank you, Richard.
yeah,
Thank you very, very much. And I've got no other questions. I mean, you've been very helpful for people that are going to be watching this, and I really appreciate your time. And I'll stop the recording now, Richard. Thank you so, so
perfect.
much. And I know you're going to inspire many, many people like you. Like I
I
said,
hope so. I hope so.
let me stop the recording.